Hey, this is X-Cult Baby back with another video. Today I am going to be doing an atheist Bible reading on the story of Esther. Forgive me in advance if there is any coughing or sneezing or sniffling in this video. My fiance has been sick for the past couple of days and I think I'm getting what he had, so yeah, sorry. This video is going to be a little bit different. The main difference being I like this story. Several years, even when I was like a believer, this was my favorite Bible story. Probably because God does not show up anywhere in this story. Don't get me wrong, there are parts of it worth criticizing, and I will criticize them because, you know, even the things I like are not above criticism by any means. By the way, if you haven't listened to my interview with Out of the Fold podcast yet, you definitely should. The interview was really awesome. At least I thought it was. Out of the Fold podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There will be links to it in the description of this video, so definitely check that out. And do not forget, when I reach 100 subs, I'm going to do a live Q&A video, so please share this video. That would help me out a lot. So the story starts with the king of Persia, Ahasuerus, something like that. I'm just gonna call him the king. Let's simplify this for everyone. That was painful. I'm not gonna do that again to you, and I'm sorry. So the king of Persia is throwing this big old party, and he's had a little bit to drink, and he summons his wife, Queen Vashti, to come in and entertain the boys. He wants to show her off how beautiful she is. I mean, talk about trophy wife. And Vash is like, I ain't having none of it. She refuses to go. And the king is hella pissed off at this. And one of his advisors is like, King, listen, you know, if you don't punish Queen Vashti for this, then all the women of the land are going to hear about it. They're going to start disobeying their husbands and stuff. Instead, you should make a decree that Vashti is no longer your wife. And then all the women of the land are going to hear about that. And they will continue to be oppressed. Be submissive to all of their husbands. So the king sends out his attendants after dismissing Vashti, and they go out into the land and collect as many beautiful young virgins as they can find for the king's harem. Among these beautiful young virgins is Esther. Esther is Jewish, and she is the cousin of Mordecai. Mordecai adopted Esther when she was very young because she doesn't have any parents. And Mordecai tells her, after they collect her, not to talk about her family at all. Do not let anybody know you're Jewish, basically. So back at the harem, all the young virgins are going under this year-long beauty regimen, which involves like expensive oils and pampering and all that cool stuff in preparation for meeting the king. Esther immediately gets singled out by the attendant in charge of them as the favorite, and she gets all the special stuff. He starts dieting her, and she gets like 7 hand-picked attendants or something like that. So even in the harem, you know, Esther is like the queen bitch. So after the year is up, each of the girls goes in turn to meet the king in the evening, and then they go back to the harem in the morning. I'm sure you can guess how that meeting went. And after meeting all the girls, the king chooses Esther to be his new queen. Yay! So one day, Mordecai, he works in like the city gate or something. He happens to overhear the doorkeepers plotting to kill the king. So Mordecai tells Esther, and Esther on his behalf tells the king, and the plot is solved, and the doorkeepers are hanged, and everybody's saved. Yay! So this guy Haman gets a promotion from the king, and he's like the king's top dog, and the king makes a decree that everybody has to bow to Haman, and Mordecai refuses. Anytime that Haman walks by, Mordecai will not bow for him, and this pisses him the fuck off. He is so pissed off that not only does he want to have Mordecai killed, but he wants to kill all of the Jews. Like, damn, Hitler much? So Haman goes to the king, and he's like, hey, there's some people in the land. They don't follow your rules, king. They're breaking your laws. Do I have your permission to exterminate all of them? And the king is like, yeah, sure, I guess. So he signs the decree, and the decree goes out that on the 13th day of the 12th month in the Jewish calendar, everybody is supposed to go and annihilate the Jews. And when Mordecai finds out, he starts ripping his garments apart and weeping and wailing and shit. And Esther hears about it, and she sends an attendant to Mordecai to find out what's going on. And Mordecai sends the attendant back to Esther with a copy of the written decree to kill all the Jews and instructions for her to go and plead on their behalf with the king. And the attendant who's sending this message stops and is like, you know, if you go see the king without being summoned, you realize that's like a death penalty offense, right? So Esther's like, ah, crap, I can't do that. And so she sends the attendant back to Mordecai to tell him that, I can't do that, like I could die. Mordecai sends him back with another message, and he goes back to Esther, and he's probably pooped, and he's like, okay. So Mordecai said, this is God's plan for you, that this is the reason that you became queen in the first place, was to save all the Jews. And that's such a typical, religious person response. If God is supposed to be the master planner, why is he so bad at planning? Everything goes into God's plan, everything that happens, Like, if you get a promotion at work, oh, yay, God's blessing me. If you have a bad breakup, it's like, oh, God didn't want me to be with that guy. If you, for example, have a child die, then it's like, oh, well, God needed another angel. And if there's a threat of a genocide in the near future, then God must have made you queen to stop that genocide instead of, stopping it himself. I don't believe that God plans out everything, obviously. I don't believe in a God. But then when you tell somebody, it's all God's master plan, when you try to give meaning to something that is, random or senseless or just chance, it kind of makes it worse. Like, for example, natural disasters. When you try to pin that on God either as punishment or as his plan, it kind of makes him look like a douchebag either way. And in Esther's case, there are so many plans that could have been enacted that it didn't involve her directly risking her life to save her entire people, God's people, who he should have saved his damn self. One, the king could have totally ignored Haman's suggestion in the first place. 2, Mordecai could have just bowed to Haman and not pissed him off. 3, Haman could have not gotten promoted in the first place. 4, God could have warned Haman in a dream not to plot no shit against the Jews. And that's just the ones that I can think of that don't involve God striking someone down randomly, which he does anyway. So that could have been 5 or 6 other plans. So anyways, Esther tells the attendant to tell Mordecai that all the Jews in the city need to fast for 3 days, which is the ancient Jewish equivalent of praying for somebody, I guess, is all of them fasting, because God just won't do shit unless he sees some suffering. So after 3 days of fasting, she goes to meet the king, and the king holds his scepter out to her, which indicates that he doesn't want her to die, even though she appeared before him unsummoned. And he's like, what's up, baby girl? I love you so much. What do you want, baby? I will give you anything you want, up to half the kingdom. Anything you want. And she's like, well, maybe you and your buddy Haman could come over for a banquet tonight? That'd be great. I would love that. And he's like, all right. So they're eating and drinking, and the king's like, honey, I know you want something from me. Just tell me what it is. I promise I'll give it to you. And Esther's like, well, I would really like it if you and Haman came back tomorrow night for another banquet, and then I promise I will tell you what it is that I want. And the king's like, okay, honey pie. So Haman leaves the banquet all full and happy, but then he happens to pass by Mordecai, and Mordecai doesn't bow to him as usual, so that just puts him in a pissy mood again. And he goes home to his wife, and he's like, you know what, my life is fucking great. I have great sons, and I'm wealthy, and I'm the king's right-hand man, and I just had a banquet with the king and his wife, and that was great, but you know what? My life will not fucking be complete until that little bitch that sits in the gate, it bows to me. I will never be satisfied. First of all, fucking villain much? You really need that one guy to bow to you in order to be happy? So the wife is like, here's what you do. We're gonna put up a pole that's 50 cubits high, and then tomorrow morning you are gonna go see the king, and you are gonna tell him to hang Mordecai from it, and he'll do it. And Haman is like, I knew that I married you for some reason. You're so smart. You're such a schemer like me. So back at the palace, the king is having trouble sleeping. And he has the scribe read to him so he can fall asleep. And the scribe reads to him the account of when Esther came to him and told him that Mordecai told her that there was a plot against him. And the king is laying in bed like, oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it? Did we ever give that guy anything for saving my life? And the scribe is like, doesn't say here that we did. And the king is like, maybe I should have done something. That guy is so fucking cool. He's just the fucking coolest. He saved my fucking life. I want to do something for him, but it's got to be special. And just then Haman walks in, and he's about to ask the king, to have Mordecai hanged from a pole. And the king is like, Haman, I am so glad you're here. You are just the man I wanted to see. Listen, there's this guy. He's so fucking cool. I want to show him that I just fucking appreciate the shit out of him. What should I do? And Haman's like, oh, he's talking about me. I'm about to get a little something from me. So Haman's like, listen, if this guy is really the shit, you gotta give him the royal attire. You gotta give him your finest horse, and you gotta send him out into the public square, and one of the princes is gonna march around and be like, hey, this dude is the shit and the king loves him. And the king is like, that's great. You go do that for Mordecai. And Haman's like, okay. So he does that. And then Haman goes back to his wife feeling real foolish. And can I just say, as someone who enjoys writing, that the dramatic irony of it all, that's one of the reasons that I love this story, is because it's got little sprinkles of dramatic irony in there that I just love it. It's great. Then as soon as that little parade for Mordecai is over, Esther has her second banquet with the king and with Haman. And the king is like, baby, you need to tell me what you want. I will give it to you, whatever it is. And Esther's like, well, I would really like to not die because someone wants to kill me and my whole family. And the king is immediately pissed off. He's like, who the fuck would do that? Who the fuck would do that? I'll fuck his shit up. And Esther points right across the table at Haman like, it's this bitch. And the king is like so mad. He needs to take a second. So he walks out. And then Haman is obviously pleading for his life with the queen. He's like, please, don't, please. No, my life is terrible. Please. And, he's like groveling and shit. And then the king walks back in on this, and he's like, you're fucking touching my wife? Are you trying to rape my wife in my own fucking house? No, fuck you. Get this fool. They take him, and they hang Haman from the pole that he had put up to hang Mordecai from. Again, dramatic irony. Beautiful. Excellently authored. Excellently written. Beautiful. So, Mordecai gets Haman's old job, and the king puts out a new decree basically saying that on the day that the Jews are supposed to be annihilated, that the Jews are allowed to defend themselves, which apparently he can't revoke the decree that he already made, so that's the best he can do, I guess. So, the day arrives, and the Jews win. They kill 75,000 people that try to kill them. So it's a bloodbath. It's a total bloodbath. And Esther is like, hey, let's make a decree that this is a holiday now. And everyone's like, hooray! The end. The reason I like this story is probably the same reason that I like most fairy tales. Like, is the main character a young, beautiful virgin who has to do some sort of brave, selfless act for others? Yes. Does the villain get his just desserts at the end? Yes. Do things that are so horrific they should not be in a children's story happen? Yes. Fairy tale. Happily ever after. That's it for this video. Next week, I am going to be rereading the story of Noah. So subscribe and stay tuned for that. Links to my social media and email are in the description. If you have any suggestions for other Bible stories you'd like to see me cover, or for any other content you'd like to see from me, please let me know in the comments below or contacting me through social media or email. Alright, that's it for now. Bye!